many other ways. So are you dealing with the reason for the risk? Do you have the insight into the influencers where you're changing the things that influence people in the workplace? I always remember a plant that I was working with about 3 years ago in Minneapolis area. A plant manager told me that he saw a worker reaching behind a moving pallet being palletized in a particular machine, and he said if their arm got caught at the wrong time back there, it would just rip their arm off. And he talked to this worker and said, don't do that. And then he kept seeing the worker doing it and doing it, talked to him many times, still kept catching him, finally took that person off the machine, put another person on the machine. This person starts doing it also. Change operators again, the next person is doing it. Very often it's not just a behavioral choice. The way this workstation was made and the speed at which they're trying to run this plant, it was basically the only way to keep it going at that speed. And so he identified, after looking at this differently, that he had a barrier out there. One of the things that we find with many of our teams is that we have communication barriers also. A lot of teams that are good at behavior-based safety are terrible at publicizing their own successes to their own workplace. So we help them get past that. That's a very important part of it. A good way to get past that is by sharing information where people can personally keep score. This is one of our teams that shares this. They call it the BBS Coaches Corner. They publish the percent safe. You see that in the green-red bar charts down there. They also talk about what these behaviors are, share some of their operational definitions and other information with the workplace. This is the kind of communication that really helps in BBS. A lot of people put posters together too, and this is a sample right out of one of our client files out there. They put up a poster that says, our observations show that footings currently are #1 hazard. Now, the reason they put this one up, or this particular one, is because they used to have a different #1 hazard. They conquered it, and now they're saying, here's our new #1. This is a focus tool, and it's a very important one. It's not just the observations that can focus people and remind people. There's a lot of other communication tools that can be used. In addition to communicating with the workforce, you need to communicate with managers. And this is right out of one of our companies that we worked with just recently. They have a red, yellow, green system. Red means it's not acceptable level, yellow means it's getting in the danger zone, and green means it's at the acceptable level. And they have picked several key process indicators out of Lean BBS, and managers track those on a monthly basis. So if this thing turns too yellow and too red over a period of time, they call up and say, what's going on and do you need help? Very good ways to communicate. If you're going to do BBS, we recommend that you do it the lean way. And what are the advantages of doing it in this lean methodology? Well, #1 is it doesn't cost you as much for consultants. This is quicker, easier, more straightforward to do. Now, it does require some work that's above and beyond what you do in some forms of behavior-based safety, because it does have to be customized site by site. There's less demand on internal resources. That means that not only do you use less consultant time, you use less of your people's time also to get this thing up and going and to keep it going. Quicker implementation and quicker results. It's amazing. We used to tell people with the old form of BBS, be patient for the results. We don't tell them that with Lean BBS because the results are very, very quick. The process is quick. The wheels are turning when it hits the ground. It has to be customized to ensure sustainability, and sustainability is one of the great, great things about Lean BBS. Almost anybody can make behavior-based safety work in an organization. The real trick is to make it work long-term and to keep it going, and this customization helps to do that. I'll show you how. Union compatibility. Unions love this stuff. This is something that they can buy into. This is something that can work, and it's not so resource-intensive. And there are a number of reasons why that happens. I'll show you some of those too as we get into it. Well-defined support roles, responsibilities, and expectations. That's what RRE stands for if you don't use that terminology in your organization. Roles, responsibilities, and expectations. Very, very well defined so everybody knows what they have to do to make it successful. Transfer of expertise. The consultant doesn't own this forever. You take it over in your organization. There are a number of organizations out there in the world that already own this technology, and they're doing it. We're just about to complete the transfer to Georgia Pacific right now. We completed it several years ago to Alcoa, to Martin Marietta, to divisions of NASA, a number of people out there doing this their own way, and it's theirs. They have the expertise in-house to maintain it long term. More implementation options. You can do this a lot more ways than you can traditional behavior-based safety. And again, the improved sustainability. This stuff lasts. It doesn't go away out there quickly like a lot of the other forms of this do. So how can you implement it? Well, you can do it the old way, where you have a consultant come in and just do it for you. That's a consultant-led implementation. You can also, though, send your internal consultants to be trained. There are also some hybrids, combinations of that. One of the things that we've been very successful at with Georgia Pacific is that we train their internal consultants, but then we let their internal consultants shadow us on a consultant-led implementation. That's what we call kind of a hybrid of these two. So we might train people from 100 sites and we only implement it one, but they all get to see it, they all learn it, and they go back with a lot higher level of expertise. Most people follow this up with some kind of cafeteria plan. As internal consultants go back, if they have a problem, they're not on their own. It's not a sink or swim situation. They can actually call for help if they need it, but don't have to if they don't. Lean BBS fits a lot of logistical challenges. I don't have time to go into all of them, but let me mention two common ones. One is you don't have a lot of warm bodies standing around waiting for an extra assignment. So how can we implement in a lean organization? Well, we have smaller steering teams, shorter checklists, fewer, shorter, better targeted observations. We generate less data that needs to be analyzed on the back end of this. We have fit this into organizations that almost couldn't break anybody away, and we've made it fit. One other common logistic challenge are lone workers. And sometimes we have a combination of these at sites. Some workers that work in groups, some that are by themselves, like truck drivers, delivery drivers, long-haul drivers. Those are some of the most common. Some just in isolated places like offshore drilling platforms. Also, we have a self-observation process that works very, very well with checkup observations that can be done a number of different ways to give it a reality check. So if you got bad logistics, this is your process. Represented workforces, we involve them very early in the design of this process. We address the issues that they are usually the most concerned about, which involve getting workers to spy on each other, getting them in trouble, management abdicating, all the issues that unions have had and written about. We know them, we're familiar with them, we've read the papers, and we help the unions overcome those challenges right up front. Then we ask them to keep a watch to avoid future problems and keep communication channels open with them. We have been fabulously successful in sites with represented workforces. So I mentioned that not all sites are ready for this. How do you know if you're ready? Well, I'm not going to give you the whole list here, but let me mention a few things. You ought to think of readiness not just at a site, but as organizational readiness also. We've had a lot of companies say, well, we're not ready to do this company-wide, but let's go do it at one site. That can work, but it can be problematic also. So you need to think about both of these as you try to get this up and going. What is your rationale for further safety improvement? If you're really bad at safety, that's usually not the best rationale for doing behavior-based safety. That probably means that you're not doing a very good job of your other safety programs, which might need your attention also. Do you have support at all levels? And support is not just, yeah, I'll go for that, I'll let you do it. Support is knowledge, and it's also buy-in. You need your managers to know what this is before they can decide whether they really will support it or not. You also need to have a mature traditional safety program. That needs to be a part of your site readiness to make this happen. Your safety culture needs to be open to this also, and not all safety cultures are. Not all companies are aware that they have a safety culture, what the nature of it is. So a little bit of cultural determination is a really good thing to look at to see if you're ready for this. Do you have adequate data to develop a checklist? Do we know which behaviors are going to make the most difference and have a good starting place at your site? Also want to look at logistical challenges. Some of them are, this is pretty good at adapting to those, but we want to adapt to them, not get surprised by them once we get there. We also need to find out if the resources are available to do this and to do it adequately. And we want to look at the timing with other projects that could potentially